Hello and welcome to the InnoFrontier podcast. My name is Jeff Handy, and couldn't be more excited to have Nicki Sanders here with us. She's currently the CTO of Realio, but has spent her entire career in blockchain, pretty much, which very, very few people can say. She's worked for incredible organizations like TaxBit and TZero, and is also the vice chair currently of the Utah Blockchain Coalition and worked for Nerd United. So, Nicki, super excited to have you here. I wanted to kind of start off with you started your career as a QA. Could you talk a little bit about what it meant to you to kind of start in QA and how that laid a foundation for your career?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, yeah, the first job I got out of college was for Galileo, which is, a local company here. And I was a software developer in test. So I was writing like a lot of their testing, like framework stuff, and just like writing tests and doing a little, website QA as well. But just doing a lot of like writing the tests to do a lot of like the banking transactions before it went live, in a test environment. Um, so I think that was a really valuable way to start my career because I got to work closely with the actual like product software engineers, but then see, the things to check for. See that perspective of really focusing on quality first, which I think I was able to take with me as I went forward. I was like, oh, I know this is what the QAs are going to check for. Let me make their lives a little easier by making sure that those aren't issues right off the bat.
Working for Galileo, which is I know it has an element of payments, but it's a financial institution. Um, it's kind of an interesting precursor to all of the things you've kind of worked on since. Um,
Yeah.
what did working at Galileo, how did that kind of teach and approach you to what we're typically doing with our financial system versus now your experience with blockchain?
Yeah, it was interesting, like really seeing the inner workings of how like ACH systems and payments work and how antiquated that technology felt to me. I was just so confused. I was like, this is the way this our pretty much whole financial system works. Like that is wild to me. Like there are better ways to do things. And I didn't know anything about blockchain tech at the time. But just kind of opened my eyes a little bit and brought those concerns of how delicate our current financial systems technology is and how kind of it's really old, really old.
And when was your first exposure then to blockchain? You're filled with those insights of like, wow, this is really antiquated. When did you get introduced, and when was kind of the light bulb moment like, oh man, this could be the future?
Yeah, so after Galileo, I was only there for a little less than a year, and then I had an opportunity to go to Raytheon. So did the defense contracting thing for about like 3.5 years after that, and just was a little bored. Like it sounds fun, like oh, defense contracting, but the actual technologies you use for like a government contractor, it's also just kind of slow and old, like comparatively to cutting edge tech, just because there's so much red tape that these new technologies have to go through to get approved for use. So you're just on really old versions of languages using really old frameworks. You're not using, the new the new hotness that everyone's talking about. So that was kind of a bummer. I was like, I feel like I'm not really learning anything anymore. And around this time, overstock.com, which is based out here in the Salt Lake Valley. They're like their CEO and founder was a huge Bitcoin fan and just really loved the technology, got in pretty early and decided to spin up like a little like research like R&D venture company type thing underneath the Overstock umbrella. So they hired a few engineers and one of them happened to be one of my good friends from college, and we would go periodically, like a group of us, like I got my computer science degree from the University of Utah, and a little group of us about monthly would go out to get some beers and catch up. And I was kind of complaining about how bored I was, and he had gotten this gig working on blockchain technology for overstock, and he was like, "Hey, we're hiring. Like, would you be interested in this?" And I was like, maybe. But so I went in to talk to them and was just really interested, in blockchain tech in general. And at the time, it was mostly Bitcoin. This was in 2015. Um, just sounded really cool what they were doing and really not boring. And so I jumped in, and so just really went in there, really not knowing anything about blockchain technology. I had to learn it all on the fly, just like fire hose of information, reading what I could online. There wasn't a ton of information even back then, but just the other people I was working with were a wealth of knowledge. So just picked their brains and jumped in and started being helpful as quickly as I could.
And so is that Medici or something?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
Medici. Hmm.
Yeah, I remember that. So my first introduction came after yours, of course, but I think it was 2008, 17, late 17 or 18, and I went
Nice.
out to lunch with Scott Paul. Um, and we met at like his gym, and I was bringing him like a business idea that we were working on that has kind of now evolved into what we're actually doing today. I was getting his thoughts, and he said, but the thing you should really do is buy Bitcoin. I was so glad I listened to that advice, at the time.
Nice.
um, but back then it was just so complicated, and you were even like, I mean, 2015, it's not very much time between when I got introduced to it and essentially 2018 versus 2015. But I can only imagine like what that was like being so early. And how is it coming from technology being able to help you? Because I, as a non-tech person getting into it, it can be pretty intimidating. But was it pretty natural, or was it like, oh, this is a pretty big learning curve?
There was definitely a big learning curve. It was easy. The easier parts were when was able to relate it to just like currently accepted technology principles. Like, oh, okay, the blockchain is like a decentralized database. Like, just like bringing it to that. No, it's just a big network of computers and they're talking to each other. Like, that's pretty easy to understand. And then it was just like, cool. It's a new technology to learn. Um, Perfect. This is what I want to do. I get bored really easily. So I was stoked to just say like, oh sweet. Like, I don't think I could possibly get bored in this industry because there's so much to learn already. And then at the time it was just changing so quickly. Like right around then, like Ethereum was becoming a thing at all, and smart contract development was becoming a thing, and I got to be really early on that. So pretty much just all the time there was just new information coming in, new things to learn, um yeah, new research to be done. So it just it felt almost like I was back in school, but but way more fun.
Oh yeah, no, definitely way more fun. Uh, so then talk to me about, the opportunity to come with TZero, and maybe tell everybody just a little bit about, that company, kind of the mission there, and then your role, because it seems like that's really where you started to, really grow, at least from a career perspective,
Mhm.
in the blockchain industry.
Yeah, so at the time, Medici and TZero were kind of synonymous. They weren't
Oh,
really two separate
really?
things. It was the same team. They were like I was like employee number 5, and it was Medici and TZero. And then
Oh,
slowly as Medici started growing and they started having like engineers focus on specific venture companies and different ideas, that's when TZero kind of did a split off, and I followed them when they split off, since I'd been pretty involved in their tech the whole time anyway, and definitely was more interested in that side of the thing. um, which like the big focus there is securities, like the way that our like current financial system works with securities trading is just so crazy once you learn about it, where there's like paper certificates in a big basement of this organization called the DTCC. And that's why at the time it took like 3 days to settle a stock trade, because it just took that amount of time to move the records. And you never really buy the security and hold it yourself, like your brokerage has it, right? So if you're using Fidelity, like they own that stock, and on a database line, it says that it belongs to you. Um, but it's just really antiquated the way it works, and it takes 3 days, and then you find out, oh, all these weird things can happen in those 3 days where there's some nefarious things going on, and people are making a lot of money in this gray area that just doesn't sit well with me, because it just seems like a waste and kind of like they're just skimming money and really offering no value. And then there's things that happen where in that weird 3-day gray window, companies can like have that stock be shorted more often than they own it. And as long as they settle it quickly enough and like get the share back, um no one really catches it, and it is illegal, but it happens all the time. And like where so like it'll show up, and this happened to Overstock, where it appeared that there were way more shares of Overstock stock than actually existed, and it was because they were selling the rights to short one stock multiple times. So that's called naked short selling, when you don't actually have the asset to back it. But since the system is so slow and just and so old, you can do that and get away with it, and no one's going to catch it. um so that was the big mission of TZero, of like, no, like stock and securities trading could happen on the blockchain, to facilitate the trades. They can be like, you could do this atomic swap in real time, and the trade is settled instantly, like, and then your address actually holds that security, so no one else can like short it. Like your brokerage can't short it from underneath you. You hold that. It just gives you that control, and just really mitigates a lot of those kind of issues where nefarious actions can happen. So it just brings a lot more kind of honesty to the system. And that was our main goal while I was at TZero. I started there just as a blockchain engineer. I helped architect and design and implement their all their smart contracts. So their digital security standard, their trading systems, all of that, which was really cool to do. It was definitely early Solidity days. It's a lot easier to learn Solidity now. There's all these tutorials and this really great documentation. And back then, no tutorials, and the documentation was not great and often incorrect because the language was just changing so quickly. Like the compiler wasn't versioned, so you could just come in one morning and like recompile your code, and there would be breaking changes, and you're like, amazing, great. So you're like trying to like skim through, sometimes like having to read the compiler code to see what it's trying to do, because the documentation wouldn't be correctly updated. We were literally sending like emails to the Ethereum Foundation being like, hey, I noticed this. Is this intentional? Is this a bug? And getting like messages back saying, oh yeah, oops, good catch. We'll have that fixed in tomorrow's compiler version. And just it was very wild west. So really difficult, but really great learning experience to just be that, like just deep in the code, having to learn it like the most difficult way possible. And then I ended up, with a good handful of patents for some different smart contract patterns from that. So really great learning experience, but one that I hope to never repeat.
Oh, definitely. I hadn't realized that TZero had actually spun out of Medici. That's really interesting. And then since those days, you had some really interesting experiences, mainly going over. And I'd love to hear more about TaxBit and that journey, because I mean, very rarely does a company start and then get to essentially $1 billion valuation in such a short amount of time. Is just absolutely
Yeah.
insane. Do you mind walking us through a little bit about like, when you joined, kind of why, and a little bit about that ride?
Yeah, so I had known the founders of TaxBit since I want to say like 2018. It was founded here in the Salt Lake area as well. So small crypto blockchain space. So we kind of everyone gets to know each other. So I had known them for a bit, and we'd kind of kept in touch. And at mostly their product for a long time was just like centralized exchange integrations. So pulling, Coinbase data for a user, Gemini database data for a user. But then they started realizing with the rise of and popularity of DeFi, and this is in 2020, 2021. Just DeFi was getting super popular, so they realized they needed to start pulling on-chain transactions and then making sense of them. And so they had me come on as their head of blockchain engineering. I, came in and it was really cool. I got to hire the team around me of blockchain engineers, and we got to kind of greenfield this new project of, all right, we're going to pull blockchain data and then parse it to kind of make sense of it, because it can get kind of complicated where some of these DeFi transactions, like there could be one on-chain transaction that could be multiple taxable events all in one, or vice versa. There could be like three like on-chain events that are actually can be combined into one taxable event. So it's not one-to-one simple at all. It's extremely complex because these DeFi protocols don't have any standardization. Everyone is kind of doing it themselves and making it up as they go. It's not super easy to read some of that really detailed transactional data if they didn't make it easily available. So you have to it just gets really complex where you're having to really get in there and sometimes like decode opcodes and yeah, like go through the actual transaction hash hex and split out what the different pieces mean, and then translating that into human readable data so that the tax engine could do stuff with it. So really huge problem to try to solve, but it was really fun to do.
Yeah, I mean, as a consumer of TaxBit, it is so easy. On my side, I just hook it up. I hadn't really realized how much could potentially go into that, especially on the number of transactions that could occur. Given one thing, you only do one thing, but it causes a few. Thankfully, that's not something that I've ever thought about as a
Yeah.
customer. Um, and how big did your team grow? When you were hired, how big was the team, and how did you know go with that transition?
Oh, that's a good question. So when I was hired, I was like their first blockchain engineer, and so there was a big team of backend engineers. I'm not even sure the number at the time. Had to be around like 20 probably, um, maybe more even. And then I hired my team, which consisted of, let's see, one, two. I have to see their faces. Three, four. I'm probably forgetting someone, but like four really like dedicated engineers. And it yeah, and then we had an intern for a while, and it was awesome. Oh, yeah, I think I'm thinking of everyone. And then we got our own dedicated product person, so we really became our own team, um with like the autonomy over building our product, as long as we were remaining in line with the company's like goals and requirements. So yeah, kind of, yeah. So went from zero to a team of six within the first few months of me being there.
No, that's not easy. And you know, what was so you're at TaxBit. Did Nerd United come before TaxBit or after?
After.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so then going to Nerd, and that's a company that's changed a lot. Over the past few years that I've been watching them. Tell us a little bit about that experience. What really led you to wanting to go there?
Yeah, they I knew a lot of the team over at Nerd, especially one of my really close friends from my TZero days ended up going there after he left TZero. And he left TZero after I'd already left to TaxBit. But so he went there and was one of like was their main blockchain engineer. And we'd keep in touch, and he was like like be expressing how it was kind of tough because he was the like most knowledgeable blockchain guy there, and so he spent a lot of his time answering questions. And he's not the most social person. He's definitely like he is one of those rock star incredible engineers that like if he has like his headphones on and like some requirements, like oh my gosh, like he cannot be stopped. Like the quality is going to be top notch, but he's getting interrupted all the time. People are always trying to talk to him because they have questions, and that wasn't his favorite part of the job. And then I knew a handful of other people there, and had been to their office a few times for different events, and just kept in touch. And so finally, like, um, uh, it was in December of last year, of 2022. TaxBit had undergone like some leadership changes, and then they ended up doing like a pretty massive layoff, and they cut the whole blockchain engineering team. They decided to not focus on the DeFi side and really go in on the centralized exchange side. Which that's a business decision. But so then I was just kind of doing some consulting and just relaxing a little bit for the first time in a while, and then had kind of just talked to my friends at Nerd, and they were like, come talk to us right now. And I, got reached out to by the CTO and president, and I was in like their office the next day to chat, and then an offer was sent to me to be a director of engineering over there, to spin up a really strong blockchain team. And so, yeah, I jumped at that opportunity.
And where were some of the parts of the application then that you were focused on?
Yeah, I was doing a lot of kind of helping all the internal teams and like their kind of venture companies understand blockchain, and doing some like it was almost like consulting for them on some of their products, on how blockchain could be utilized and what we could do, and creating some little one-off projects for them to do things like easy NFT issuance and things like that. And then the other part was helping solve some of their wallet issues. Just the original wallet that they had built in their system just was pretty outdated, as far as the technology goes of what's considered best practices now. And so I was like, oh, when I was at TZero, we did a lot of wallet stuff. We could we throw this together and fix it. So we just created a little like prototype really quickly, demoed it. Everyone loved it, so we got to run with that, which was pretty fun, just to solve a lot of like some technical issues with the wallet, as well as some like user interface things with people are not with non-custodial wallets. People are not great at backing up their private key, writing down their seed phrase, all of that. Stop. It
I'm
was
just
so bad.
kidding. I'm
People
just
were
kidding.
losing their keys all the time, and then like calling customer support and being like, oh, can you reset my private key? That's not a thing.
Ah,
That's not a
no.
thing. And so we were like, all right, we need to have a way to make these recoverable, but still non-custodial. And so we were able to like really brainstorm on what that would look like, created a really good system for that. And so that's what we ended up running with to create for them. So
Well, definitely
recoverable,
needed.
non-custodial. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, and that's totally the future of where everything's going. So, are you okay if we just spend a couple more minutes? I just had a couple more questions for you, but I know we're already at time. Are you
Oh,
okay?
I don't have a hard stop. So
Oh, perfect. All right, just a few more. This is incredible. So talk to me a little bit about the formation of the Utah Blockchain Coalition and some of the things that you guys are working on right now that you're really excited about.
yeah, it was created by like Tobin and Amelia Gardner. And I think it was early last year. I'm trying to think, or maybe the year before. I'm told, yeah, maybe the year before last. Yeah. And yeah, they just kind of they Amelia's really involved with government, local government here in Utah. She's like the county commissioner for Utah County, and just a huge fan of blockchain technology. Like she like created this whole system for Utah County where they can issue marriage certificates on the blockchain, just really trying to utilize the tech, which is incredible. But then they realized like there's a lot of other states that have industry coalitions for blockchain technology, really kind of representing the private sector, and how they rely on, clear regulations, certain things being just defined in the law. And it's since it's such an early tech still, a lot of the regulations and laws don't really work and don't really make sense for the technology. Um, so we realized we could be like, they realized they could put together this group of industry leaders to help, like, go talk, almost like lobby a little bit, go let the legislators here in Utah know what the problems are and what they can help with, and what like good sound legislation would be. And also, give advice on what, if there is if there is proposed legislation, like, does this actually make sense? um what is this Would this just, like, kill people's businesses? um so we can kind of be all over the map on that, which is awesome. And then also just bringing together the, like, industry leaders for Web3 tech in general into the same place, so we can kind of talk about what everyone is doing, get on the same page, share ideas, and just really move forward together. And I mean, our big goal is to make Utah just a hub and a friendly space for emerging Web3 technology. If, like, for an example, we helped a lot with the DAO law that was passed in Utah, that goes into effect next year, 2024, just of having an actual legal classification for a DAO, where, under, like, current law, you kind of you treat it the same as an LLC, where every member is just like a partner in that LLC, which makes every individual member individually liable for any
Hmm.
action the DAO does. I don't think that is the intention for many DAOs to be treated like that. So we just kind of realized, hey, this is just a new organization structure. And since it's new and like nothing that's existed because technology didn't allow for it, it needs its own classification and its own rules around how those work and what the liabilities are. So that's awesome. And so being able to pass laws like that can make Utah just like really attractive to new businesses to incorporate here. Like, if you're going to be a DAO in the United States, you want to have those legal protections, and you should probably register your DAO here in the state of Utah. So being able to, like, help collaborate and pass that kind of legislation just kind of move our whole Web3 tech community forward.
Yeah, super powerful, and glad for all the work you guys are doing. Tell us a little bit about the opportunity that you're at now. So you've, gone from QA to CTO, overseeing, this great organization, which is very exciting. As I was looking into the company, it's like this is the first application of the blockchain that I was like, oh, that's totally where it's going. Do you mind telling us a little bit about your current company and your role and the things you guys are working on?
Yeah, I just finished. I started last Thursday, so today was day 7. So been here a long time, but no, it was really cool. It kind of fell into my lap a little bit. So I'm the CTO of Realio, and we focus on real world asset tokenization. Um, they just the whole premise is that, all right, what about, like, for there's real estate, there's like metaverse real estate. If this is going to if you can tokenize this and facilitate, like, secondary trading of these assets, again, like, you could do that with a database and, off chain situation, but then there's room for nefarious things to happen. So if you're going to do it, like, why not have it just be completely transparent, and public, and anyone can access it, permissionless. So that's really our motivation, and we're yeah, we have a few projects in the works. Nothing is like, we have our own blockchain network right now, where that kind of drives a lot of our tokenization projects. But we have a lot slated to come out next year that I'm really excited about.
We are too. It's going to be awesome. As you look forward into the future of blockchain, what are some of the things that excite you the most? Just about the technology generally, its general adoption, regulation. Like, what are some things that are exciting about the future that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I love the world of tokenization. I love the idea of things moving on chain in that arena for sure. I also love the combination of like AI and blockchain technology, like using blockchain tech to reward creators for um their work being used to train LLMs. That's an awesome way to do it. Super easy. You don't have to create anything new. Just use the system, use the blockchain system. Um, and then I love it for just like true ownership, right? Like you can own your data, and like right now social media sites make a lot of money off your data. That's just the way it works, and Google makes a lot of money off your search data. But what if there's a world where instead of all that data, you're giving up all this data and not getting anything for it? What if you can control that a little bit more and actually like give permission for your data to be shared and rewarded for it as the motivation? I see that really taking off, especially with the whole like they're changing, some of the Google like tracking. uh I think I think next year, I think in 2024, where there's just new rules around what kind of data cookies can gather. It's going to be a lot harder for companies to gather data that they use for advertising and and other things like that. But so I see that as a huge opportunity for blockchain tech to be used to, people can be like, oh, sweet. Yep. You could read my data. I don't mind getting served targeted ads, but I'm going to get paid for it. Yeah, just I see that as definitely being the future, and I feel like it's going to be huge.
And my always my favorite part when it comes to blockchain is the individual empowerment through technology that the blockchain gives people. It does let
Yes.
you give that control, and for those who are willing to engage, they're going to be ones that are going to have complete control over everything they touch, and so that's so cool. And you mentioned about AI and blockchain. That combination is rarely talked about. There's a bunch of people that are AI people or people that are blockchain, but the synergies there is, I think, what is so exciting to me. And to be honest, like I'm fairly limited in my ideas for what those potential partnerships could be down the
Hmm.
line, but they do almost seem to be almost two different ecosystems. But I think as time goes on, they're going to start merging together in pretty powerful ways. Maybe as
So
a
true.
last question, any thoughts around that and about any ideas you have of how the two can start to really work together? You touched on it, but would love any other thoughts.
Um, I don't have tons of information on that. I do, a fair amount of reading about it, and yeah, a lot of it is about, oh, how can we like prove where data came from? Can we reward people for that data? Um, it would probably be nice if some of the data could be stored on chain instead of in, a black box somewhere where people don't know, you know, what data has this model been trained on? Like, what kind of biases is it going to have? Having those kind of things like secured and like like provable, auditable on chain, I think is going to be really important as the world moves towards using a lot more AI, which could be trained on anything, could have, have missing some important chunks of data that you might not know. Like even now, there's the whole issue with GPT-4 that, they're like, oh, it's gotten a lot worse because it started to train itself on its own responses. So it's there, it's not going to be perfect every time, but it's then reading what like ingesting its own responses as being good data, and so it's learning off that, and so it's getting worse, so they're going to have to back out a lot of things. But that's complete, like no one knows, like no, the public doesn't know that. There's no way to see that. um Having that be a little bit more public, I don't think would hurt anybody, and actually might point out problems quicker than the that the actual engineering team finding it. You could find, like, I'm sure there would be so many people who, would be a watchdog for that, especially if they could get like rewarded for like bringing up issues that are true issues.
Couldn't agree more. Lastly, any advice for people that may be listening who are looking to progress in their careers? You've hit all the kind of major milestones in somebody's career thus far that I think that somebody in technology could hope for. Any advice for people that are starting out in the middle of the career, or maybe have had a layoff and are looking for that next step for them?
Yeah, I would say it wasn't until kind of later in my career where I realized how important having a strong network is. A lot of engineers really assume that the tech world is a meritocracy, which we would love to be true, but humans just really don't work that way. I mean, a great engineer will probably always be fine. Like they'll figure it out. But having a strong network of people who can vouch for you and refer you to jobs and just bring your name up in conversations is just invaluable. And that is something that I think that really I really benefited from, which it didn't hurt like being a woman in the space, because then people remember me and remember my face and remember who I am, because I'm going to stand out. So I would say find a way to stand out, make those connections, go to industry events, meet people, talk to people, figure out what they're working on. It will never hurt. That is never wasted time. And then also just um have some confidence. So even if you don't feel it, that can help. Like don't be cocky, but even if you have to fake it a little bit, just bring some confidence, and then eventually that'll catch up. Your skills will catch up to that confidence. And then also I would say never stop learning. Hopefully if you went into the tech field, it's because of your love of learning, because things are changing all the time. But I've seen some engineers get a little bit complacent, and then they get kind of stuck in their careers. Um, and then to catch up is just going to be a huge lift, because there's so much to learn just of new technology. So I would say just be hungry for knowledge and don't be scared of it, and just keep reading. Do like go to these industry events, go to conferences, listen to tech talks, go on like programming subreddits, where people are talking about new things. That when there's a new framework that's come out, watch the YouTube video on it, do a tutorial. Just stay up to date.
Incredible advice on all counts. I loved especially what you said about building that network. It may not be as intuitive for people who have a skill set,
Mhm.
but it definitely will push them forward. And I think you are a great example of that. Nicki, can't thank you enough. This has been a fantastic conversation. Anything else you want to leave with us?
No, I don't think so. I think we've talked about a lot.
Nope, I think that sounds great. I really appreciate it, Nicki. Thank you for being on this podcast. It truly means a lot.
No problem, anytime.